without UKIP, we would never have gone across the line. I will tell you why. Because they have backed into it over the last couple of years in by-elections, in local elections, in county council elections, and in this referendum. As you know, I'm standing back a bit. I'm not going to go on being leader of UKIP, but I haven't gone away. I haven't retired, as some people would have you believe. I will support whoever the next leader of UKIP is. I'm not disappearing. But think about this. The majority of young people in this referendum voted for us to stay. Many of them believe that life outside the EU is going to be miserable, we're going to go bust, life is going to be dreadful. And what an irony it was to see Sir Bob Geldof, sorry, Sir Bob Geldof, a couple of weeks ago, protesting, telling young people their futures have been sold down the river, went across the other side of the channel. And in every country in Europe, it's the under-30s that are leading the opposition to the dominance of corporate business and the undemocratic structures that rule from Brussels. So we've still got more work to do, but I believe we will do it. And I think as the Brexit process unravels, even if we don't get all the way, people begin to understand that life outside the EU is safer, better, and stronger than it is this failing, desperately failing union. So the job for UKIP, the job for YI is far from done. The Labour Party is in complete and utter turmoil. Frankly, it's finished in its current form. And if under our new Romanian Prime Minister, Mrs May, they don't deliver the common fisheries policy back to territorial waters, they don't stop us being part of a single market that regulates the local corner shop, and don't stop the free flow movement of people, then by 2020 we could have a perfect electoral storm for that election. So there's a lot to play for, there's a lot to do. UKIP needs reform, UKIP needs change. We cannot go on being governed by an entity who frankly is pretty detached from how politics work. Things like that need to change. Our membership model needs to go online. We've got to start looking a bit more at what the Italian five-star movement does. And we need to attract a lot more young, enthusiastic foot soldiers to help us in by-elections and everything else. So UKIP matters, YI matters. I'm not going away. I'm still going to be there, supporting the party and supporting you. Have a great conference. While you're there, have a beer too.
Well, thank you, Nigel. Good morning, everyone. And how are we all today? I see a few fragile faces. Welcome to our fourth national annual YI conference. And there's a few firsts this year. It will be the first with me as your chairman, most importantly. It's going to be the first to take place during a leadership contest, and the first of the leadership hustings, and it's going to be the first leadership hustings of the campaign. So we've got a little twist for you this afternoon. Most importantly, it's the first since we won the referendum that we as a party originally set out to win. And it's the first, in the same vein, to take place in a northern city. I know I'm a southerner, and sometimes I confuse, Birmingham and Nottingham with the north. But this is important, given the result of the referendum and where we have to look to as a party. So, I hope you sit back, enjoy the rest of the day. Please use our hashtag #FreeBritain. Now, there's a woman who, apart from Theresa May, is another existential threat to that free Britain. And we're very lucky to have the gentleman who's our only real opposition north of the border. Our co-president, co-honorary president, David Coburn.
6 months ago. Which ones? Can you all hear me? Are you receiving me? Jolly good. Well, I'm wearing my green patron's tie. That's the one you get when you put a lot of money in, just in case the NEC get the wrong idea. That haven't gave me gibbies. Look, boys, gave me gibbies. I can't see what all the fuss is about. If they can't organise at our central office to let people know they're members, then it's high time they sorted their stuff out and stop chucking stuff around other people. Anyway, that's as much as I'm going to say about that. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, the most important thing is we won it. UKIP won it. And that's the main thing. And we got Brexit. And I can tell you now that the only campaigners on the streets of Scotland were the Scottish kippers. All of them out on the streets all the time. We didn't see the Leave campaign led by Tom Harris, the former Labour MP, I think the Stooge Brigade, basically the Conservative Party stooges. We didn't see them at all on the streets. They didn't have any members, they didn't have any people, they just were the invisible men. And Tom Harris was known as the invisible man. Well, we were out there, we were the only people doing stuff. Now, the SNP had a prediction that it would be 80-20 to remain in the European Union. Well, our little band of Scottish kippers brought that down to 60-40. And if it hadn't been for that band of Scottish kippers doing it, we would have lost Brexit. So it was extremely important what we did out on those streets. And all of you, I've got a lot to thank the Scottish kippers for. It was a small band, but a very hard-working band of people. The Scottish election, sadly, a bit of a rerun of the general election. We got squeezed because people wanted to stop Sturgeon forming a majority government. Well, they managed to do it, but sadly in doing it, the 10% of Labour vote that I hoped was coming to us, they held their noses and went straight for Tories because they were the only people in the Parliament with a chance of stopping them. So they went to them, sadly. But there you are. But they're very sadly disappointed with the extremely pro-European Ruth Davidson and her pro-European Tories. And they are rethinking their thoughts. A lot of the Labour vote are disappointed as well by what the Tories have been doing, and I believe that we are about to collect a lot of Labour support in Scotland. And funnily enough, quite a few Scottish nationalists have become disappointed with Nicola Sturgeon and want a party that is nationalist, namely quite their flavour of nationalism, but at least they're going to stick up for the country. And I'm doing the best I can to make sure we do not alienate those people and we bring them into our party. I think UKIP in Scotland has a great potential to build on the Brexit, and I will do my best to make sure that's the case. Well, the Ruth Davidson, she's not doing very much. She does exactly what the rest of them are doing. You couldn't put a cigarette paper, as Nigel always used to say, between her and the rest of the Scottish leaders. And I think that this is where we're going to win. I don't know how many of you read the Daily Express, but in the last few days, our campaign in Scotland to stop the Named Person Act, which is a disgraceful, authoritarian piece of legislation which will put a commissar in every home in Scotland telling people how to bring up their children. Now, there's nothing more authoritarian than that. Well, we've campaigned against it, and now the Supreme Court have ruled against it, and they've also stated that the Act is authoritarian and is the sort of thing that we've perpetrated by authoritarian governments. So that tells you everything you need to know about the SNP. And that's a sign of UKIP in Scotland working the papers, working the TV stations. We have managed to bring something to light that other people didn't want to discuss. Again, Ruth Davidson, the Conservatives, what did she do? She didn't vote against it, she abstained. So she's as guilty as all the rest of them, although she claims, oh no, it wasn't us. Well, I'm sorry. She abstained, and that's as good as voting for it. So, there we are. Well, the next section I've entitled, Mine's a Wee Hoff. The Sturgeon, or Gloriana, our First Minister, has been running around Europe speaking to every president, and there are plenty of them in Europe, and I just don't mean the presidents of individual states, I mean the presidents from the European Parliament. There's at least 5 of them. And she's trying to arrange a halfway house for Scotland. So I decided if she can have a sort of summit, I thought I'd do my Henry Kissinger. And so, you probably don't remember him actually. Probably way back with Neville Chamberlain actually. And Lord Halifax. Anyway, I did my summit with Herr President Schulz, who's the President of the Parliament. And Schulz is a nice enough chap. We get on, we're both bibliophiles. I gave him a book, which I thought helped a bit. And we had a good chat, and I even invited to have coffee, which is apparently very rare. So we sat down, we had a good long chat, and he quite frankly told me he was not interested in doing a separate deal with Scotland. It's not possible. And he, as a European president, could not do it. It would be unconstitutional for him to interfere in internal British affairs. That is not what they're there for. The European Union are no more interested in balkanising Great Britain than we are in balkanising the Spain or the Baltic states. We want to keep those countries together. It is not in our interest to do that. So, after a good chat with him, he said there will be no deal with Miss Sturgeon whatsoever. And what she's doing is rushing around the capital here, causing uncertainty and causing a disaster for Scottish business. And it should stop. She should behave responsibly as the First Minister of Scotland, and not behaving and not working for the interests of her personal fetish, which is Scottish independence. So, if we tried to have independence, we'd be vetoed by both Spain and the Baltic republics, and also, no doubt, by the French, who do not want a problem with their minorities on the Spanish frontier. So Scotland would have to leave. It would have to become an independent state, according to Herr Schulz, and it would have to accept the euro, which has destroyed Southern Europe, and furthermore, it would have to have none of the rebates that Britain has got. So instead of the 10 billion we're paying at the moment, it would be 13 billion we're paying by Scotland. So that's hardly an incentive to go into the European Union separately. We'd also only be 1/27th rather than 1/4 as we are in the United Kingdom. And we would be kicked about, as many of the states of Europe are, like Greece, some of the smaller states. We'd end up in that sort of state. And that wouldn't be good for Scottish rule or Scottish independence. We'd be ruled by Brussels, in the same way that the Greeks are ruled by Brussels. And that is a very unattractive proposition. So I don't think many Scots are going to vote for that. Also, in the referendum, or neverendum, Scots knew that there was going to be another referendum on the European Union, and it would be a pan-British referendum. They knew that. And we voted, more Scots voted to remain in the United Kingdom than voted to remain in the European Union. So she's got no basis for another referendum, and she will most assuredly lose. Now, Scottish nationalists are a rotten government. You look at their education policies, you look at their hospital policies, it's dreadful stuff. They are bad at running government, but they are consummate politicians. And I do not think that she is silly enough to go ahead and have a referendum. She's definitely going to lose. So I think that's the end of that. This is all flannel for her own people, because over a third of Scottish National Party voters voted for Brexit. So she's not only got a problem with the European Union, she's got a problem with her own voters who are not going to go along with her nonsense. So there we are. Scotland has to choose between being part of the UK or being part of a separate Scotland and part of the European Union. We will definitely go for membership of the UK. So I think that's said and done. Now, the other thing we have, because she is very keen to import voters, she's not getting independence with the Scottish voters, so she continues to import people from all over the world. They claim this is to do with refugees and stuff, or very, very good stuff, but it should be done by the UK as a whole, because we have open borders. and we have voted for Brexit. She says, oh, but the Scots wanted it different. Well, I'm sorry, we voted as the United Kingdom. We have to have a barbed wire frontier at Berwick-on-Tweed. That's 50 miles from Edinburgh, our capital, and I think an hour's Ferrari drive for the rich entrepreneur to head for the border and head elsewhere. So I don't think that is a good proposition for Scotland, and I don't think anybody up in Scotland's going to vote for it. Berwick-on-Tweed will become the new Calais, with people trying to get into England. She has put a lot of, I don't know if you've been reading the papers recently, but apparently they've been putting a lot of refugees on the island of Bute. They're so keen to leave, apparently they all want to go to Manchester, Birmingham and London, because obviously they're urban people and there's not a lot of things they can do to set up businesses. And many of them are hard-working people and want to set up a life there. And they've sent them to a place where there's not a lot of work to be done. So it's not only unfair, but sending them to these islands is, I think, a way of keeping them there. They're desperate to keep the refugees or the immigrants in Scotland. The next thing they'll be doing is sending them to St Kilda, which was evacuated in the 1930s. So that'll be their next ploy, no doubt. So, moving on from that, what are we going to do in the future? Well, I want to see a more federal structure. And I think that is the only way forward and the only thing that will work. I think there has to be an English Parliament. I was never that keen on, but I think we have to have it. And I threw out names and ideas, but again, this is more for the English people to decide. But I like the idea of the Wittangamot, which is or the Witten, which is the old Anglo-Saxon Parliament. So a good name with all the stuff about it. We're in Scotland, they're all doing Sir Walter Scott and Rob Roy McGregor. Why should the English have a bit of medieval panoply? So I think let's have a Wittangamot or a Witten, and let's base it somewhere like York, which has a lot of fine buildings. Don't make the same mistake as Scotland and hold your parliament in Sainsbury's. Make sure you find a decent old building. And there's no need for members of the Wittangamot, the MWs, to have lots and lots of offices. With modern communications and mobile phones and all the rest of it, we don't have to have acres of offices. This is also passé. It's just a lot of aggrandizement for the sake of it. So let's find a nice old building, let's give England her say and give her equality with the rest. It also means our structure remains much as it is. I don't agree with Paul so much, Paul Nuttall's idea so much of changing a Westminster Parliament. I think that should remain very much as it is. I think too much constitutional change throws up all sorts of problems that we cannot yet foresee. So I'd like to try a gradual change, just having an English Parliament and then leaving the Commons and Lords as they are at the moment, but I'd like to see the Lords change to something more democratic, or at least the way that the Lords have chosen to be a more modern method of doing things. Although I don't like the name senators, I think that's just ludicrous. We're not, it's not up Pompeii, you know, we don't want to look like America or something. So I think this is the way forward. I think UKIP must lead. Let's torpedo the SNP's boat or whatever, battleship. Let's get ahead of the curve. Let's show that we are more ingenious than they are. Let's take the ball from the SNP. I think in Scotland, a lot of people wanted a parliament, they wanted more say, but they did not want independence from the rest of the United Kingdom. And I think as long as we can make the English satisfied with their system of government, the Scots have their system of government, then everybody will be much happier. And I think that is the only way forward. And UKIP should be leading with the rest fear to tread, as we have done with Brexit and everything else. That's the new message for UKIP. Let's change the constitution in a sensible, measured way to get people what they want. Let's show them how to do it, what the other parties haven't got the guts to try. Thank you very much.
We're running a little bit behind, so I'm just going to take a couple of questions. Does anyone have a question? Mike.
Mr. Coburn, do you think we should have something like a British Bill of Rights, to kind of separate ourselves
Right.
Or not?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's something I've been looking into. Yes, but I don't think we should have a separate Bill of Rights. We have a perfectly good Bill of Rights of 1689. You know, the Bill of Rights that we set up is an excellent Bill of Rights. Why don't we just amend it or add to it? That's the way we do things in this country. Less of this revolutionary stuff that Tony Blair was up to, just chucking the Constitution about, throwing out the Lord Chancellor's office in a day, a post that went back centuries, and then throws up so many constitutional problems, he had to bring them back again. So let's not just chuck the baby out of the bathwater. I absolutely agree with you. We need to cover more modern things. You know, lesbians were quite not so well thought of in 1689. They've probably been burnt at the stake. I'm not saying, but I could make a witticism about it. But the long and the short of it is that, you know, we have to make changes that suit the modern day, and I think that's only sensible. But let's not go mad. Let's not have mammoth big bills. There are loads of stuff that we've got the Bill of Rights are covered anyway. So let's just amend and extend the one we already have.
One more. Is there anyone north of the border that's got a question? No? Anyone else? Oh, yeah.
How do you spell Watangamot? Don't ask.
Mr. Coburn, obviously we've not had a very good result in Scotland, as in we didn't get any Hollywood seats. In the party north, we've been talking about a lot of restructure that's going on within the Scotland branch. Is it possible that you could tell us some of those changes that are being made to make the party more effective in Scotland?
Yeah, I'd love to. A lot of the time, the last 2 years, I've spent much of that time trying to get myself elected, and then trying to get us elected. We've just had or try and keep Scotland within the UK. We've just had one big long list of how do you put it, of constitutional votes, and it's been exhausting. And we're not a big number of people up there. We've got 1,000 people. Apparently it's gone up massively since Brexit, so you'll be pleased to know that. And the other thing is we do have a younger old kipper to young kipper ratio. We have lots more young kippers than we have old kippers. So that's something that's very exciting for Scotland. But what the structuring I'm trying to do, if the NEC will get on with it and let me get on with it without interfering, is basically we're going to restructure around the existing Scottish seats for the Parliament. That makes a lot more sense. So we're going to try to make the branches reflect that. And I'm also fed up. We've had a lot of people who have been, how shall we put it, old-fashioned, stick in the mud. And when I built the Bexley branch down in London, I started having meetings on Saturdays. Most people, young people, who have got jobs or young families, cannot come in the middle of the week. They're too exhausted to come back from work, or it takes too long for them to come from their work. It is not practical to have week-time meetings unless you're going to have it as a pensioners' convention, to be quite frank. So what we do need to do is we need to have meetings on a Saturday. Now I did this in Bexley, and it worked. We meet 1 hour before, and said we meet for an hour from 11 till 12. We have a street stall in the High Street or wherever, and then after that we go off to Wetherspoons and have a meeting, a drink, a convivial thing. Because nothing is more off-putting, and I had to try and it's taken time to gradually get rid of people with some very old-fashioned views of Scotland, replace those chairmen with much more forward-thinking people, and I want that to be the way of doing things. That way we expand the party. The party has not been expanding as quick as it can because of this old-fashioned idea. Nobody wants to listen to a load of people, you know, spouting off about, you know, I don't know, minutes and God knows all what. You want to go out the street, get new members, drag them back, let them have a good time. People will come if they're having a good time. Nobody's going to sit there listening to somebody droning on, reading the minutes and coming up with all sorts of ways of solving dog fouling and all sorts of other rubbish. It just is not going to attract members. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to restructure the party in those grounds, and we're going to be much more dynamic. And heretofore I haven't had the time. Now I do before the local elections, and I'm hoping to get as many people as we can in. We're going to concentrate on certain seats and get some people elected. We're not going to go scattergun. We're going to try and get certain people in who really want to be in. Too many people become councillors, just because they're told to. And that doesn't always work, and we do not have the resources to do that. So we're going to concentrate on certain people and get certain people in. That's the plan.
Thank you, David. Yeah. Ed, how do you do this? I think. Right. Thanks for that, David. Now, the referendum campaign. The impression I got from it was, despite the broad differences across the political spectrum, people like Kate Curry, you have people like Boris Johnson, and then people in UKIP, even some Greens like Jenny Jones. It was a broad coalition of the good guys, and I'm honoured to now present Simon Richards, who's a very good friend and comrade of YI, and very much one of the good guys. Thank you.
First time I ever called it
Now, can you hear me from here?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Just getting act together here. Actually, I have been called comrade before by some fellows who deal from, I don't know if you know David, you're young enough to remember, the Federation of Conservative
Oh,
Students.
yes.
All of whom are sort of extreme right-wingers, libertarian right-wingers, I might add. And we always address ourselves as comrades. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure to be back at YI again. I have to admit that the last occasion on which I was in Manchester, I had, I think, one of the most daunting tasks you could imagine. I had to follow a speaker in a packed pub. I had to follow a speaker called Nigel Farage. And I thought things couldn't get much more difficult, and then I had to follow David Coburn. And I tell you now, I'll take Nigel any day in that respect. David's absolutely brilliant as ever. Now, I know it's the centenary of the Battle of the Somme this year, and I think here they're sort of trying to recreate no man's land. So I'm just hoping that there are not going to be any machine guns there. Any Germans in the audience? No, that's a good start. And I've got to say, what a great guy David is. A true libertarian to the tip of his forehead. Though I can assure you that I have not been there myself. I hugely enjoyed your conference in Nottingham last year. Joe and his team then did an absolutely brilliant job of organising it, no pressure guys, and even down to arranging free firework display, which some of them you may recall. And I realised then that although I've been to lots of YI events over the years, I haven't actually been to a conference before, and I realised then that YI knows how to discuss serious issues, but also that it knows how to party. And if I may say so, ladies and gentlemen, knows how to party hard. And the last thing I recall from that weekend was being in a double-decker bus that appeared to be rocking. And then I remember seeing David heading merrily for a nightclub, whilst I was fit only to crash out back in my hotel. I can't compete David. And in fact, when it comes to partying, nobody can compete with David Coates. Now, a year on from then, so much has changed, hasn't it? I imagine that many of you must have spent your early years in the Blair era, and that you may have joined UKIP in reaction to what he represented. Now, I grew up under an earlier Labour Prime Minister, a guy called Harold Wilson. And I also reacted against him, as I suspect David probably did, about the only person here of my era. he famously said, a week is a long time in politics. Well, if you were around now, I think you'd have said an hour is a long time in politics. What an amazing few weeks this has been. And let's be frank, it's been hard to keep up with the speed of events in recent weeks. I sent out an email to Freedom Association members just a few weeks ago, headed, "Cometh the hour, cometh the woman," singing the praises of a lady called Andrea Ledson. And only a week later, I had to send out an email with exactly the same headline, but this time in praise of another woman, Theresa May. Now, you may feel shocked because for very many years, the Freedom Association has never had a good word to say about Theresa May. And I haven't, we haven't changed our views on her illiberal policies on a whole range of areas. Yes, a week certainly is a long time in politics. I've got to confess that anybody who sacks George Osborne and Anna Soubry in 1 week can't be all here. So, talking of rewritings, I've also rewritten this speech because I had planned a sort of lengthy diatribe, and I know Jake had asked me for a diatribe against Theresa May. But I think timing is all in politics, and I think it's right to give a new Prime Minister an opportunity. Let's judge her by her actions. I'm not giving her carte blanche, very far from it. We need to watch her and her government like a hawk. But I think it's fair to give them the benefit of the doubt for the moment, keeping a close eye on them, and then if they start to backtrack, if they start to bring in the liberal policies, then we'll be on them like a ton of bricks. Now, I mention this because I think that it's important to recognise realities, as well as sticking to one's principles. Like UKIP, the Freedom Association and the Better Off Out campaign, which we run, has spent the last decade and more campaigning to free Britain from EU rule. Let nobody doubt the epic nature of our achievement, and that's the Freedom Association, and of course UKIP are massively important in that, of our achievement in overcoming everything the entire world establishment, not just the British establishment, not just the EU establishment, the whole world, including our friend Comrade Obama. We overcame everything the entire world establishment could throw at us. Now, Brexit has, in essence, released our country from its chains. But what matters now is what we do with our newly won freedom. By its very nature, freedom can be put to bad use as well as good. Given that both the Freedom Association and UKIP face much the same challenges, if it's any help, I can reassure you that I've been there before. The Freedom Association has played a leading role in not one, but two of the most dramatic changes in this country. Long before we started campaigning to leave the EU, we led the way in the Thatcher-Tennant reforms that transformed Britain from the sick man of Europe into Europe's most dynamic economy, only held back by Brussels itself. When Margaret Thatcher put into effect all of the things that we had been campaigning for, we were, of course, delighted. But the sudden achievement of what we had wanted also had a dramatically adverse effect on our ability to retain membership and to retain income. Now, with Brexit, both the Freedom Association and UKIP, I think, face a similar dilemma in that respect. We came through difficult times then by sticking to our principles, and I believe that is how we and UKIP can come through this new challenge too. Now, why I, as UKIP's youth wing, will have an absolutely crucial part to play in helping create the coherent approach which your party will need in order to survive these challenging times. Don't be put off by the fact that you are massively outnumbered by the unthinking, right-on, indoctrinated status position that most young people bleat like sheep. You already know from your Brexit that you can overcome the most formidable odds when your cause is just. Now, in taking on what I call the youth establishment, you can do the same in promoting the cause of freedom. As with the Freedom Association's experience in the vanguard of the Thatcher reforms, I know that you can do this because I've been there myself. This time last week, I was in deepest rural France. I'm a well-known francophobe, but we had a good time. Celebrating Brexit with 3 other ageing Thatcherite Eurosceptics. Now, we first met almost 40 years ago when we were in the Conservative Student Organisation of those days. There was, of course, no UKIP back in those days. And listening to Jamie and Dan on the Hoof's YouTube channel the other day, it was great. I hope you've all listened to it. Listening to them, it brought my own youth politics experience flooding back. You know, I was the future then, if you give me that. Though I have to say that things were far less gentlemanly in my day. It was very polite, I thought. But one of the guys I was with in France had actually defeated a truly ghastly woman to become chairman. So you can imagine things were pretty nasty. That woman, dare I say, another mention I've got to say, was one Anna Soubry. And I can assure you that she was just as bad then. So he defeated her to become chairman, and I defeated a wishy-washy chap from Cambridge, a typical sort of Oxbridge elite chap called David Lidington. Whom some of you may know as the former Europe Minister, the genius behind Dave Cameron's farcical EU non-renegotiation. And I became Vice Chairman. Now, the reason I mention all this ancient history is that when we went, is that we then, after we got elected, we went all out to challenge the leftist consensus of the day. There weren't many of us. But we did our bit to encourage the Thatcher government of the day to make far more radical reforms than it might otherwise have done. We helped to shift the centre of political gravity from statist socialism to individualist freedom. What did Margaret Thatcher make of our radicalism, which went so much further than her ministers wanted? She absolutely loved it and egged us on. Both Jamie and Dan really impressed me in their conversation with the Hoof. By the way, where's the Hoof? Give him a good round of applause. Great man. Every party needs a Hoof. They're probably just one of them. But what struck me most of all was Jamie's insistence on being brave, being bold, and avoiding what he rightly called the comfortable option. How right he is. My belief in freedom stems from reading Hayek, Friedman, Orwell and others when I was your age. Of course, I've adjusted my views with experience, but fundamental truths do not cease to be fundamental truths with time. They remain valid. I think that YI has a tremendous opportunity now to change the political agenda. The other parties, the Conservative youth wing, is in complete turmoil. I think it's been suspended. And in any case, it's largely full of careerists, in my experience. And the Labour, well, you don't want to say Labour. So it is a tremendous opportunity for you guys. And founded on the rock of true principles that Jamie and I know so many of you hold, you really can take on the intolerance and economic illiteracy of the left liberal establishment. The time is right for that. It's not my place to make any comment on the UKIP leadership contest now underway. I gather you've got some hustings, or is it just a preliminary attempt to get onto I'm a celebrity, I'm not quite sure, later on. But whoever wins, I think that there is a good prospect that YI could lead the way in creating a coherent set of policies based on the principles of individual freedom, which will return to the British people much of the power that has been stolen from them by the political elite. I think that that is a role that any new UKIP leader should welcome. Dan Hannan, in a short YouTube video trip to the Freedom Association on our 40th anniversary last year, talked about how we had acted as an advance guard for policies that others were too timid to promote. And I was rather proud of that. I thought he'd sort of got a spot on that. And that's how we defeated the trade union closed shop. That's how we defeated CND's plans to make Britain defenceless. That's how we defeated Labour's plans to make us carry identity cards. And of course now, in conjunction with UKIP and others, we defeated the EU. If UKIP takes up the challenge of restoring power to the people and increasing their freedom to take their own decisions about their own lives, rather than have the state and self-professed experts taking them from them, it will complete the work that Brexit has merely begun. UKIP has a choice. It can choose to earn the public's contempt by ludicrous manoeuvres such as trying to prevent leadership contenders from standing in elections, or it can build on its Brexit success by standing up for the right of ordinary people to coin a phrase, take control of their own lives. If it chooses the latter path, why I can lead the way. A great American president, Ronald Reagan, said, "Freedom is a fragile thing and is never more than one generation away from extinction. It is not ours by inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation, for it comes only once to a people." Ladies and gentlemen, Brexit has provided your generation with an opportunity to make the United Kingdom a beacon for freedom in the world. Grasp that opportunity with both hands. Thank you very much.
Simon, thank you. Thank you ever so much for coming up to speak to us. It's always a joy to have you, always a joy to listen to you. I'll take questions for the floor. Does anyone have a question for Simon? Matt?
You were grand as a campaign for getting us leaflets for the referendum and stuff. Now we've voted out, will there be new leaflets and actually continue to supply of those leaflets? Because they were a grand help for all us campaigners getting out there.
Well, thank you, Max. Good question. And may I just take this opportunity to thank all the YI and UKIP people right around the country who did such a fantastic job of distributing millions of our leaflets. We could not have done it without you guys, so enormously grateful. And we had a lot of very favourable comments on them. And yes, and of course, like you, we're having to relook at what we do. So yes, we won't be doing probably quite so much on the EU front, because apart from keeping an eye on the government, we need to move on. We have a number of projects in the pipeline. I can't say too much about it at the moment, because to say we're in a bit of a state of flux like you guys. But one of them that we should be launching shortly, for example, is to defend people's rights to vape. Now, we all know whether you smoke or not, and I'm not a smoker, I think there's been appalling intolerance towards smokers in recent years. Now we think that vaping is a new opportunity. It's, despite attempts to claim that it's harmful, which are completely false, this is an opportunity, I think, to actually give people a chance, if they wish to give up tobacco, and it should be their choice, to join vaping in a very harmless way that's actually going to benefit the health of the nation. So it's an area the EU is already restricting vaping rights, so it's a natural thing. So that's one of the campaigns that we're looking at. But yes, and we very much hope to continue to work closely with YI and UKIP because frankly, although I went a bit easy on Theresa May, and I do think she made a very good start, freedom is not one of the words in her vocabulary, and we're very conscious of that.
Are you concerned about the snoopers charter now, Theresa May as PM?
Very much so. Again, it's something we're going to be watching, dare I say, rather inappropriate terms, so watching like a hawk. We are very concerned about that. I do think we need to be measured about this, though. Timing, I think, is so vital in politics. Taking that on maybe at the middle of a time when the EU countries in particular have enormous problems with security. I just think we need to do this in a sensitive manner. I'm based in Gloucestershire, and quite literally down the road from me is the only donut in Britain that perhaps does us any good, I think, overall, which is GCHQ. I think the things we do need security. We do need. I think that the state does have a right to protect people, but it all has to be measured and it has to respect individual rights. So I wouldn't. I think sometimes the left responds to this in a way that is simply hostile to our country because they hate Britain. And I think we need to have a balanced approach, defending our freedoms, but also maintaining people's rights to respecting people's liberty. It's a tricky balance.
GCHQ will be pleased to hear that.
Well, I do get clicks on my phone every now and then, so I think they keep a good eye on us.
That gentleman there.
Yeah. Hi. Hello again. I'm Simon.
Hi.
And I can say that because of parent interest, I was involved in Labour Leave. Yeah, we did exist. We actually won it. You can thank Hartlepool later. My question is more of a philosophical one, Simon, which is, we obviously come from different political traditions on this. You've got a long time with Margaret Thatcher, the Thatcherism, that sort of libertarian, stuff, I shall say. But if you actually look at the places that voted Leave, they were exactly the areas that have been neglected for the last 40 and 50 years under that precise economic model. We're talking about Merthyr, we're talking about Darlow, we're talking about Hartlepool. Now, this is more of a sort of a political question. Do you really think it would be in UKIP's best interest to continue to preach a libertarian creed which has been roundly rejected and dismissed by those working class constituencies for not just the last 40 years, but emphatically at this referendum?
Well, thinking of South Wales, Nathan, who's following after me, may have some more to say about that. But I'm from South Wales myself, for example, and my father is from the same constituency as Neil Kinnock, for instance. So I know enough about that to know that the problems with, for example, I take that because it's the area I know, the South Wales valleys, they go back way before Margaret Thatcher. And I think that all the signs are that the best answers to the inevitable problems, they're always cyclical cycles. If you look at the United States and Great Britain in the 19th century, when we were both very successful powers, there were ups and downs, there were peaks and troughs. That happens. Only an idiot like Gordon Brown thought that he could get rid of boom and bust. And I think the problem is, what people see as capitalism is corporatism. It's the global capitalism, I think, is the likes of Tim Martin, what he's done starting Wetherspoons from absolutely nothing, making a successful business which charges very good value for money, has good training staff, and creates a huge amount of jobs, and given us all many a happy hour at the bar. But there's many more things happening, someone like Dyson, you could go on, entrepreneurs. And I would cite an example, if you look at Corby, there's a massive steelworks there, which I believe had many of your compatriots went down to work there, David. And that now has, that was a disaster area because it was a steel town. And now that has lower unemployment than the national average. It's been done because lots of small businesses opened there, and I think that's the future. Now, I don't want to be too hard on Labour leaving this, because you guys did a fabulous job in the campaign, and it was a real privilege for us to work with you. And I think that point that you made about those being the areas where we did well in the thing is absolutely a valid one. And for me, it was a very moving moment on the morning on Friday the 24th, immediately after the referendum result was finally announced. It was very moving to get. We've got a little office just off Trafalgar Square, and we went, in my case, sort of fortified by most of the contents of a litre bottle of gin. We went through Trafalgar Square and along Whitehall, and we had these special Brexit Union Jacks which went around the world. And I was really moved almost to tears. But when we went down there, we just walked over these Union Jacks. Suddenly all these horns started hooting and people were cheering and giving us thumbs up and waving. And it wasn't the limo drivers of Whitehall, it was White Van Man, it was the cabbies, and most of all, absolutely most of all, which I found very moving, it was the bin empties. So all out, it was early on. I think they were getting rid of the rubbish, they were trying to get rid of Gideon and Dave. But they were so enthusiastic, and it was, you're absolutely, it was the working class, patriotic people of Britain who got us out of the EU. But I do think that we've got plenty of statist parties, let's be honest. We've got Labour, or different parts of Labour. The Conservative Party is very statist, in my opinion, now. It's not the party of Thatcher. The Lib Dems are completely statist. I do think that there is a role for UKIP supporting proper free enterprise. That's not corporatism, because that is what brings wealth to ordinary people.
Thank you, Simon. I would take some more questions. Now, two countries, or rather one country and one principality voted to leave. And I'd like to introduce the man who brought UKIP Wales to where it is today. Leader of UKIP Wales and Honorary President Wire.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Simon. It's normally me who has to follow David Coburn. We are known as the Celtic Fringe, and there's many a time I've said, is there any way I can go before him? It's only fair. Now then, in 2014, when I was fighting in the campaign for the European elections, I predicted back then that Wales would vote to leave the EU. And it wasn't something that was just being blasé or soundbites or anything like that. It was because I knew my fellow Welshmen were as Eurosceptic as anywhere else in the United Kingdom. And I knew that when we had that opportunity, the British people would rise to the occasion and would vote to leave. And indeed, we did just that. And it was crucial that it wasn't just the English that voted to leave the EU. Crucial because, of course, then we would have the bleatings of Leanne Wood and Carwyn Jones and Salmon saying about those evil English once again dragging us from our beloved EU. We was able to say, well, actually, it wasn't just the English that voted to leave, but Wales voted to leave as well. So I'm so grateful that my fellow compatriots, the rest of Wales, voted to leave. It wasn't an easy job. It's something that we've worked on for many, many years. And I can remember the first conference I went to, a UKIP conference, and it was in Telford, which was a very long time ago. In fact, it was so long ago, I was actually, I'm sure, the youngest person in the audience. So it was long before YI really picked up and there was all the young people about it. And since then, I decided that if there was a cause, if there was something that you're going to dedicate your life to, my country, my nation, was that cause, was something that was worthwhile. And so I decided there and then to do just that. And I'm ever so glad that I did, because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're fighting for your country and you're fighting for truth and right, then it doesn't matter what the opposition is. It doesn't matter what accusations they throw at you, what stones, spitting, all the other usual things that we've all had over the years. It didn't matter, because I knew that actually I was fighting for no greater cause than that of my country. Now, it was quite unusual, and I'm sure many of you experienced this as well, to be stood at street stands, but not with a UKIP banner, but with a Go banner or a Leave.eu or a Vote Leave banner. And people actually were able to come over to us because they didn't feel that, oh well, it's UKIP. And lots and lots and lots of people, I was in Llandudno, I was doing some campaigning, and it was under the Go banner. And people were shouting across the street, we're voting for you, walking by, we're all with you. And it was literally about 98% positive, and was there campaigning away. And two people came out of the Marks and Spencer's, who was right outside Marks and Spencer's. And they were in the Marks and Spencer's uniform. And I thought, oh, they're going to tell us to move on. And they came over and said, can we have some leaflets for the rest of the staff? We all want to know what you're on about. I said, oh, fantastic. So I gave them the leaflets. And a few minutes later, an elderly chap walked by and looked at me and said, you should know better at your age. And I just shouted back and said, you don't know how old I am. So he stopped and turned around and said, do you know anything at all about the EU? To which I said, yes, I'm an MEP. And he went, well, he said, when was the last time you went to the Somme? I said, I was there on Friday. And again, he was like, very stunned. He said, well, you should know then that the Old Testament, you know. You should know then that the EU is the reason why France and Germany have stopped attacking each other and everything. I said, yeah, nothing to do with NATO or nuclear bombs, is it? It was great. It was a campaign that I thoroughly and utterly loved. Because it was an opportunity, those 12 years of reading things and watching YouTube videos and listening to Nigel and all the rest of it. And we was able, were we not, to put all of that knowledge to the test. It was an election. It was our referendum. It was solely and utterly about our speciality subject. And didn't we do well? Because of course we won it. Now, I was very blessed and honoured to have a front seat to history. When I got elected in 2014, I told my wife, I have just been given a front row seat to history. I didn't realise it was going to happen in 2 years. You know, I thought it was going to be 5, 10, 15 minutes down the line. And I was very lucky to be in London on the night of the referendum. And I was doing an interview with some Irish channel, and all of a sudden I was on College Green and there was camera crews everywhere and floodlights. I was doing this interview and all of a sudden everybody started beaving around like an anthill that had just been poked. It was all moving around and all this craziness going on. And I was live being interviewed and the woman said, Nathan Gill, your leader Nigel Farage has just conceded that you have lost the referendum. What do you say to that? To which I said, well, I don't care what Nigel said. I know that the people of Wales will vote to leave the EU, and I know that we're going to win this referendum. Let's wait and see what happens. And sure enough, we did. Now, one of the reasons why I was so confident, not only the fact that I had spent so much time campaigning throughout the whole of Wales, on the actual morning of the referendum, the BBC called me and said, will you go and vote? And we want to send a camera crew and film you voting. So I said, sure. So my wife and I turned up, and of course my wife got all dressed up to go and vote, as you do, because we didn't see you were going to be there. And as we were walking in to the polling booth, this lovely, old, very old Welsh couple walked out, and the gentleman saw me, and he came over and grabbed hold of my hand, and the whole time he was like holding my hand really tight. And he said, "Now I just want you to know that I've just voted to leave the EU." And I said, "Well, thank you very much." I said, that's wonderful. I said, "You didn't do it for me though, you know, you did it for us, for our nation." He said, "No, I don't share your politics." He said, "I'm a lifelong member of Plaid Cymru." I said, "Oh, you know, that's great, that's okay." He said, "And I voted to leave because I want Wales to leave the United Kingdom, and the only way we're going to do that is the EU." And I was like, "Right. Thanks for your vote." But I knew. And then he said, "Those idiots in Gallagher, they haven't got a clue what they're talking about, why they're telling us to vote to stay in the EU and all that stuff." And I thought, well, do you know something? If a lifelong member of Plaid Cymru has voted to leave the EU, we've got this. We've got this, haven't we? And sure enough, we did. Now, by about 5 o'clock in the morning, so, you know, we had no sleep. We'd been up since 5, 6 of the previous day. And Nigel went off to a safe house to have a shower and a bit of a reflection and to contemplate things before he made the big speech which he made on College Green at 7 o'clock. And I was with him and was in a ante-room, a private room, and it was just myself and Nigel and one other person, and just been very calm and quiet before the big media frenzy that was about to happen. And I looked at Nigel and I said, "Nigel, do you realise you've just brought down a British government and that you just led to the end of the EU?" And he looked at me and said, "Yes, I have, haven't I?" And sure enough, within 5 hours, the Prime Minister resigned. It's unbelievable what we have done when you think about it. It's absolutely unthinkable. In fact, it's so unthinkable that when we go to the European Parliament before the Brexit vote, so confident and so cocky were they that you silly bureaucrats, you don't understand your own people, and you have no idea. You're going to be humiliated, and Nigel, you're going to have to come back in and face us all again. We're going to have a good old laugh at you. They had no idea. Because throughout history, the British people have always done the right thing in the end. It may have taken us 40 years. We went the wrong way for a bit. But in the scheme of things, what's 43 years? It's nothing, is it? And we now have the most amazing opportunity ahead of us to sort this nation out, to put things right, to actually give you our future, a future that you can decide for yourselves. Because up until the 23rd of June, your future was decided for you by a bunch of unelected bureaucrats in rooms where nobody knew what was going on. And nobody knew reasons, true reasons behind why most of the rulings were being made. Now, ultimately, in the years of work that I've done in Wales, I started in a country where we had just a few hundred members, just a few branches, less than a handful of branches in the whole of Wales. And myself and various other people have worked extremely hard against what could be seen as against all the odds to turn a nation that was always seen as being Europhile into a Europhobic nation. I believe one of the main ways that I was able to do that was by showing the people of Wales that their perception of UKIP was wrong. Everybody thought that UKIP was a bunch of old, angry men, a bunch of racists, so long ago that I got in my car, drove 4.5 hours to Cardiff, did a 10-minute radio interview, and then got back in my car and drove for 4.5 hours back home. Because I knew that the best way of reaching the people of Wales was through the media, through that outlet that allowed us to reach thousands and thousands of people, and then it was able then to be made into clips and YouTube on. And that's what each of us really have a duty to do, to break the myths, to prove that actually we are not what people think we are, but we're just normal, decent men and women who love our country and believe we deserve something better, something so much better. And I believe truly that we do. And we've got many problems within our party. It's already been mentioned about the NEC. I think it's no secret that they're not exactly fans of mine. I'm not exactly fans of theirs either. Very strange that I should receive an email ordering me to sack Clear Power.
I think we need to clear it.
But there we go. I mean, ultimately, I've worked with YI for many years. I remember when Dan was oh so much younger than he is now, and slept on the floor of our campaign office in Holyhead. And basically, between myself, Dan, and a few other really hard-working people, we leafleted all over Anglesey. Dedication, belief, putting themselves out. I saw the BBC 3 small documentary, about 5 or 10 minutes, about our YI workers who, with Mark Norton in Aberystwyth, John Mosley and Andrew Wilmore, in the most Europhile place in Great Britain, every day went out, set up a table, and stood proudly for their country and faced abuse, mocking, sneering. Every day they did it because they knew this was for their nation's future. I am truly proud of YI. I'm truly proud of our future because ultimately you guys are the future of this party. It sounds bizarre, but one of you is probably the future leader of UK. It sounds bizarre, probably a little bit scary right now, but that's the reality of it. Because the day comes when we pass that baton on to the next generation. The day comes when we, with all humility, step aside and say, I've done my bit, now it's your turn to do yours. I just want to close with reading excerpts from one of my favourite poems. It's quite long, so I've had to really cut it down and abridge it. But basically it's about a race, and like a school race, and a young boy is running, and is winning the race, and he has 3 falls during the race. It says, the whistle blew, and off they flew, like chariots of fire, to win, to be the hero there, was each young boy's desire. One boy in particular, whose dad was in the crowd, was running in the lead and thought, my dad will be so proud. But as he speeded down the field, he crossed the shallow dip. The little boy who thought he'd win lost his step and slipped. And it goes on. As he fell, his dad stood up and showed his anxious face, which to the boy so clearly said, get up and win that race. He quickly rose, no damage done, behind a bit, that's all, and ran with all his mind and might to make up for his fall. So anxious to restore himself, to catch up and to win, his mind went faster than his legs. He slipped and fell again. He wished that he had quit before, with only one disgrace. I'm hopeless as a runner now. I shouldn't try to race. But through the laughing crowd he searched and found his father's face, with a steady look that lay there silently, a teardrop from his eye. There's no sense running anymore. 3 strikes I'm out. Why try? I've lost so that what's the use, he thought. I'll live with my disgrace. But when he thought about his dad, who soon he'd have to face, get up, an echo sounded low. You haven't lost at all. For all you have to do to win is rise each time you fall. Get up, the echo urged him on. Get up and take your place. You were not meant for failure here. Get up and win that race. 3 times you fall and stumbled. 3 times he rose again. Too far behind to hope to win. He still ran to the end. They cheered another boy who crossed the line and won first place. Head high and proud and happy. No failing, no disgrace. But when the fallen youngster crossed the line in last place, the crowd gave him a greater cheer for finishing the race. And even though he came in last, with head bowed low and proud, you would have thought he'd won the race to listen to the crowd. And to his dad he sadly said, I didn't do so well. To me you won, his father said. You rose each time you fell. Ladies and gentlemen, the race that we are in is far